I was halfways in between, halfways. I remember I used to catch it by, there's N Street,
Mm-hmm.
around in there I think I would catch it.
Mhm.
And if not, then I wouldn't go to work.
Mhm.
And I went to work at the laundry and I was there for a while. And then I married my husband, thank God.
Now, how did you meet your husband?
Oh, he was a friend of my brother.
And your husband's name is Ralph?
Rafael.
Ralph Robles?
Mhm.
He's also from Colton?
Well, he's actually from Poland. They came from the Arizona side. He was born in Arizona, I think.
Okay.
So they come up from that way, but
And his dad was,
he
worked
was
for the railroad?
He was a big chief in the railroad. He
Uh-huh.
was the crew, he ran the group.
Okay.
So
So from Beaumont to Colton, Dad worked for the railroad,
He
Ralph
worked-
worked for the railroad,
Yeah.
and then you met Ralph in Colton?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes.
How did you meet him?
He was a friend of my brother's, and he would go to the house.
Which brother?
Agapito.
Agapito?
Did you ever know him?
Sí.
Oh, no,
sí,
él,
yeah.
él, and we liked each other, so
Mhm.
we wound up getting married.
Hmm.
And there was no.
Was it love at first sight?
No, love at first or second or third sight. I didn't have too many chances to go out. So
Yeah.
when he kind of fell for me, well, I was proud. Maybe
And,
not proud, but I
and
was-
how did he ask you out? How did he?
I don't know how he did it,
Did
but he
he-
did get to go out. But it was mostly during the day, and he would take me to places like the park and that kind of thing, but never in the evening, never in the evening, and I don't know why.
So it was during the day that you got together. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Father Valencia married us.
And how many years did you go out with him before you got married?
It wasn't years, it was maybe a year,
Uh-huh.
maybe a year.
Uh-huh.
So, because he was a friend of my brother's, I had to be careful.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
They went to school together with Agapito,
Uh-huh.
and they both graduated at the same time, and that's how I got to know him a little better.
Uh-huh.
And my brother didn't like it, but he didn't object, he couldn't stop me, so.
Yeah.
So that's how
And
it was
you
done.
got married at church in
At
Colton?
the church in Colton,
Uh-huh.
Father Valencia married us, and the whole thing, did all the court requirements and
Uh-huh.
everything.
Uh-huh.
And I did not get pregnant.
How come?
There's a lot of girls that did, you know. and
Well, tell me about your children. Then how many children did you have?
I have 4 children. My eldest is my daughter.
And your daughter is a
Victoria.
chemist, you said?
She's a chemist. She works at Bourne's. She's divorced. She's been divorced for years. And she's got 2 children. A daughter, a graduate of Stanford. She's now in Texas, and I don't know what the heck she's doing down there. I think she's some kind of a lawyer.
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
But she was an outstanding student all her life. I
uh-huh.
don't think she's ever gonna get married either.
Yeah.
And then she had a son with troubles. So he's still with her. They live together, and so I don't know. what
And
the-
they live also in Grand Terrace, like you live in Grand
Yes,
Terrace?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And
Now,
then
your son?
my son, Ralph.
Uh-huh. Ralph Jr.?
Gordito.
No lo conozco, yeah.
Está güero.
Yeah.
He lives close to LA, and he was a slow starter. He was very bright, but he had problems learning.
Mhm.
So one of the school teachers used to go out of her way to come to talk to us at the house. And so we knew he had the capability. It's just that he was slow in some ways. But he came out of it, and he's done very well. What is his title now? He works for the state also. He's a big shot for the state.
He works for the state
He
of
goes-
California?
Yes, and he goes.
The employment office?
Probably.
EDD, yeah, EDD.
He
yeah,
goes
employment
up,
office.
he goes up to Sacramento sometimes.
And your other son?
My other son, Teddy, he didn't amount to too much.
Mhm.
He's still home, he's still sick, and he's still chugging along, and he's a good student, though.
Where does he live?
He lives in Colton as well.
Oh, okay.
So they're all around me, kind of
Uh-huh,
close. And then
uh-huh.
Eric also lives close to my house.
Mhm.
He lives not too far from my house. He's a lieutenant with the highway patrol.
Mhm.
So
Oh, he works for the highway
for the
patrol?
highway patrol.
He's a lieutenant?
He's a lieutenant.
And his territory is this area?
In this area, he's out of the not Phoenix, but the Palm Springs in this area.
Okay, Palm Springs, this
Yeah,
area?
out this way, and
Yeah.
he's been there a long time, he's gonna retire.
Oh, he's a supervisor for the area then?
Yeah, and so he's gonna retire before too long.
Mm.
And he hasn't had any close calls, thanks to God, but he did one time. He
Mhm.
got injured in a freeway. He got banged up in it, that was blood on his face. I don't know what happened.
Well, you know, you're talking about your family, and your second oldest brother was Mike,
Yes.
Mike Mercado.
Mike.
I knew Mike, he was a great not
Ball
only
player.
handball player, but also a baseball player.
He was very good at everything.
Yeah,
he
tell us
tried.
about Mike.
Mike was different from the other ones. He was taller, very nice looking, very well, and he always excelled in whatever he did in sports. The other ones tried, but they just couldn't
Mhm.
match up. But he did very well, and he met Margaret Aranda, and they were married.
He married one of the Aranda girls?
Margaret.
Yeah, Margaret Aranda.
There was Ramona, and then Margaret, and then Rosa, and then on down the line. But he married Margaret, and
Mike played for the Colton Mercury's.
Mercury's, yes, and he also worked for the railroad, and so did my brother Agapito. They worked for the PFE.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They worked for the same company, and then they branched out into whatever. Mike got married, and Agapito still stayed home, and then he went to school. They were in the army. I forgot that.
Mm-hmm.
They were when they call you in. That
Was that World War II?
must have been. Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, both of
Had
them
to do
for the
with the
service.
Japanese and all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we would talk about the camps where they would put him,
Mm-hmm.
and so he was in the service as
Mhm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Now, you talked about your neighborhood. Did your neighborhood had a name for it? Did they call it La
La
Paloma?
Paloma,
La Paloma?
more or less La Paloma.
So
Yeah.
you were born and raised in La Paloma?
It wasn't the greatest place to be raised up there.
Why?
People were so poor, and it was like, it wasn't a slum. We were close to the dump, not too far from the dump. We could go select our own stuff from the dump.
Mhm.
And that
Were you
wasn't-
close to the river también, Santa
Yes,
Ana River?
The Santa River wasn't very far, maybe a block and a half away, or 2 blocks, at the
Uh-huh.
most 2 blocks.
Uh-huh.
And when it was flooded, when the water went up real high, you could see it.
Mhm.
One year they had to take us out of there.
Do you remember the 1938 flood?
Must have been the year that they took us out.
¿Qué pasó?
When nos sacaron, and the water started to recede, so we were able to go back, but it was pretty high. You could
Mhm.
see it going almost to the top.
So they asked you to vacate?
To vacate, they finally asked us to vacate, so we
Uh-huh.
went to stay with some friends of
Yeah.
my mother or whatever.
Was your house damaged or anything?
No, the water didn't get that close.
Oh, it didn't?
No,
Mhm.
no, but it could have very easily. Wasn't much more to go.
So you were young, you were about 5 years old then?
I remember.
And you remember that? Uh-huh.
I've gone through hell.
Mhm.
I've gone through hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I survived,
Uh-huh.
and I can still laugh.
Yeah. You said you went through hell. ¿Por qué? What does that mean?
I went through my own personal hell because I wanted more out of life. I wanted to have a better job. I did do that. I worked for the county for a while, but nothing permanent. I wanted a permanent job.
Mhm.
And then I got married, and that's the end of everything.
Mhm, mhm.
Started to have my children.
And when you lived in La Paloma, you lived off of Congress Street?
Well, Congress was like this, and then there was another Pine. What was it? Congress was like this.
Mhm.
Pine was like this. Congress was like that,
Mhm.
and then Fernando was like this.
Right.
And it faced the river at the end.
Yeah, it ended at the river. It ended at the river.
Yeah.
Now, were you, were you familiar with the projects that were close to that area?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. They finally finished them.
Mhm,
They finished
mhm.
them, and there's still people living there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So, did you have any friends that lived in the project?
No.
No. What about the Vanakins? He almost lived
Vanakin,
across
yeah,
from you.
Her mother used to visit us.
Sarah Vanakin.
She used to visit my mother a lot. My mother never even had time to talk.
Mhm.
She would go see us, and she would try to help us, but it was an impossible thing because My mother was also overwhelmed with all the kids and everything.
Mhm,
My father
mhm.
was never around. He did whatever he wanted.
Mhm.
And she tried to help us, but we couldn't be receptive to it because life was such that there was no way we
Mhm.
could have done it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But, and Mary, I know Mary, her daughter, and Bobby Vanagan, I think they're all gone.
They are, except
Freddie-
Mary. Mary's still
Freddie-
available of our life.
And Freddie died too, the two brothers.
Yeah, Freddie Vanaken Jr. passed away. George Vanaken,
The one that was
the
my
oldest.
age.
Yeah, he's the oldest. He
Mhm.
passed away too. And Mary's the only one that's left.
She's left and
Uh,
I see her, but I don't see her that often. And the reason I see her is because she is comadre with Paul Muro,
mhm.
Paul and Mary Muro.
And Danny Muro.
And Danny Muro, he's involved with him.
Uh-huh.
And through them I hear about him.
Mhm.
But they were good.
Yeah, she married Gil Garcia.
Gil Garcia.
Gil Garcia.
Yeah, she did.
Right. Yeah.
I haven't heard from her in, I don't know how she's doing or anything. I hope she's doing okay.
Oh, I saw her at the Wilson picnic,
Oh,
and
did
she
you?
was doing well.
Good.
Let me ask you about going to Garfield Elementary School. Did you have a good time being a student at Garfield? ¿Por qué?
Estábamos muy pobres. We couldn't enjoy dressing up or anything like that. I like to dress up. And we didn't have the, we were happy as a poor person can be. We always had enough to eat. I don't know, just, to me, it wasn't a happy time.
How did you know you were poor?
Comparing to the neighbors, they would wear new shoes once in a while. They had, because my father refuses to go on welfare. He was too proud.
Oh, he didn't say, no, we're not going on
We were not
welfare.
gonna go to welfare, we would not be getting those little dresses that they gave the girls and whatever clothes they did for the boys, but we were never allowed to go join welfare.
Mm.
So, we did without.
Mhm.
He was too proud. He didn't do enough for us, yet he wouldn't let us do anything for ourselves.
Mhm. Now, at Garfield, you said you were too poor, and you knew that you were poor.
Mhm.
What were some of the other things that you didn't like about Garfield, that you liked about
Well,
Garfield?
Garfield was an opening door for me because I was able to see what the other kids were doing and wearing and saying and doing. A lot of them were poor like we were.
Mhm.
We weren't the only ones.
Yeah.
And, but it helped me to open my eyes up about other people's lives. And it wasn't pretty though.
Mhm.
It wasn't pretty.
Mhm.
And well, we got through it,
Mhm.
but not because we wanted to go through it.
Mhm. It just you had to do it.
We didn't have a choice.
Mhm.
We either did that or we died.
Mhm.
We starved or whatever. And my mother probably would have killed because she did the best she could with what she had. It
Mhm.
wasn't very much.
Mhm. What about Wilson, your experience in Wilson?
It was kind of a happy experience because
Mhm.
I was more involved in social stuff. They had little dances and they had sports and they had a little bit more.
Mhm.
So I enjoyed it a little bit better.
Mhm.
So, you know.
Were you a good student?
It was fair. I would go home and I wouldn't be able to do my homework because I had to help.
Mhm.
So that didn't help me any.
Mhm.
However, I never failed anything. So I held my own with what I had.
Mhm.
Probably I would have done better if I had had the chance.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
How about the teachers? Did they treat the students well, as far as you
some of
remember?
them did, some of them didn't. I remember this male teacher at the junior high. There was this Hispanic girl that was feita, buck teeth, and she was tall and skinny, y estaba morena.
Mhm.
And he didn't like her for some reason. He kicked her in the hallway of the junior high school. I remember that. So I was on one end of the hall, and he was on the other, and she was going into the math class or something, and I could see him go like this. He actually kicked her.
Mm.
I never said anything because it, wasn't my
Mhm.
place, but I wish I had.
Mm.
You know, they wouldn't. They probably would have overlooked everything. I don't know the way
Mhm.
they did stuff.
So mom and dad didn't complain?
Mom and Dad never knew anything.
Mm.
They never knew about our lives. My father could care less.
Mhm.
He didn't care about us.
Were you allowed to speak Spanish at school, or?
That's all we did, speak
Oh,
Spanish.
that's all you did? To each other?
To each other, but then
In class.
But later on, as you can tell, I can speak English. Actually, I like school a lot, probably because I didn't have enough of it. And I encourage my kids to do the same thing, to go to school, to go to college, to do the best they can. And I have my daughter, she's a chemist. My eldest son, he works for the Division of Highways. He's got a big, important job. And then my Teddy's the one that is kind of slow. He feels sorry for himself a lot. And he's always sick, he's always this, and and the little one, Eric, is a little fighter. He's a
Now, your husband and your brothers went to, were they in the military? You said they were in the military.
My husband was, and who else?
You said Mike was in the military.
Mike was in the military.
And Agapito was in the
Agapito was in the
military.
military. Mike went to Germany. Agapito didn't go out of the country.
Uh-huh. And your husband?
My husband was in Korea.
In Korea.
He was.
So he's during the Korean conflict?
He went during the Korean conflict, and he was a sergeant. He got somewhere.
See?
So, yeah, and he was pretty smart. He learned the code talk.
Mhm.
You know, when they would, like the Indians did.
Mhm.
They kind of. I think he learned that. So he did pretty well.
Now, when they came home from, they left Colton and they experienced another world, another language, another
Yeah.
culture, different experiences, different training. When they came home, was there something different about them when they came home? Did they want a better job? Did they want a new house? Did they want, just?
They must have. They
Mhm.
must have, because they all improved themselves. They all later on bought houses and went to school. And my brother Rapito did very well in school. Mike didn't go to school that much, but Rapito did. And then they married okay.
Mhm.
So I guess in their own way they survived.
Uh-huh.
It was tough for them too.
Mhm.
It was
Mhm.
tough for all of us.
Yeah.
You missed all of that?
Monday?
You missed all of that?
Oh, no, I didn't. I
You did?
didn't.
You
I
got part
didn't.
of it too, huh?
Not at all, not at all.
Oh my God.
Anyway, also when you were living in South Colton, you had the fiestas patrias,
It was fun.
you had los progresistas, you had los
Yeah.
trabajadores unidos,
Mhm.
and then you had, who were the Mexican American leaders in the community? Do you remember who the Mexican American leader?
Oliva,
Pascual Oliva.
Pascual Oliva.
Uh-huh. How about Pete Lukey?
He was also there. He was always involved. I remember him. He was
Mhm.
always involved. He wasn't a good speaker or anything like that, but he was always involved. And who else? You probably remember better than I do.
How about Johnny Martinez, Jeremias,
Johnny Martinez.
early
Did he-
40s?
Did he play with the Mercuries?
No, he was a boxer.
Oh, well,
He was-
I don't know. I don't know
yeah,
about him.
Yeah.
No, I don't know about him.
Uh-huh.
I know baseball, handball.
But any community leaders like Manuel Padilla or?
Manuel Padilla. No, I didn't like him.
You- But he was one of the leaders, más. Angel Oliva, Pascual's brother.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. They were a little bit, I didn't know them, but I heard, and I think they.
You heard about them, huh?
They